All right, Paul Casey, you are the CEO of Growing Forward Services. You are an expert when it comes to helping executives, leaders, managers, business owners take back their calendar. And I know that there's people that are listening to our conversation right now, and they're like, Paul, help me restore sanity in my life. First off, like, how did you get into this space?
You know, when I started becoming a teacher, and I think teachers are probably the most organized people on the planet, highly respect all educators. And I got promoted to vice principal after 2 years being a principal. And I walked into my principal's office and he had piles all over the place, looked like a bomb went off in his office. And there was just something inside me that got a little nauseous that day. And I just went, I know I can help him. And so I said, can I organize your office for you? He goes, have at it. And I categorized everything by like to read and memos. That was the day of memos, and put all things into piles. Of course, he went back to his old ways very shortly after. But there was something that sparked that day, because on his desk, there was a document called the Organized Executive. And it was all these time management tips, and I just ate it up.
Wow. And then what happened?
So along the line, I just kept adding more things to my time management toolbox and studied it for now 25 years, just picking up little tips along the way till I have a huge file full of that. And I thought, you know, I'm going to write a seminar on this, because I was doing seminars for teachers at teacher conventions. And I added that one and got such a great response to it that I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to niche in this area.
So then where did you go from there? I want to keep the story going. I want to get to the happy end, bring us up to today.
Right.
Because so I know you're very well known. You're an author. You've done a lot of speaking, and you've got a really decent book of business in terms of executives that you work with and other professionals in helping them, not feel so overwhelmed.
Yeah, so I decided to launch a business. I quit the day job, started the dream job. Started the business in 2012, got the website and the business cards, and just launched while I had the day job. And then that dream job started creeping up off to the side. And I started adding workshops, and I started adding team building to that to help teams grow. And then this leadership coaching. I was like, what is life coaching? Tried to figure out what that is, and went, I do that naturally. I want to help people get to their goals and dreams. So I added that to the repertoire. I wrote a book on it called Maximizing Every Minute, just a little book, a little bigger than an ebook, but tried to put all the things I was applying and learning into that. And it just has taken off since then.
Well, I certainly love that you've really niched and branded yourself as a calendar coach. And I think that makes you pretty valuable. There's a lot of life coaches out there, but I like that you're known for one very specific thing. Okay, so how does somebody know that they need your help?
Usually they're in a state of overwhelm. Founders, CEOs, managers, they're just freaked out. Like there's too much coming at them. They're trying to do more with less time. They're trying to reduce costs and yet maintain that performance. Their family life and their friend life is suffering. And they're just feeling like regret, like I'm going through life like a machine. And I've got all these other priorities that I would like to do. So they're overwhelmed.
Yeah. I'd say, Paul, and let's why don't I get a little bit of coaching here while we're at it, since I don't often get to work with a calendar coach, but let's do it now. So right now, like in terms of my life right now, where, my schedule, it's totally maxed out, and it's good, like, because, we're going through a lot of growth business wise. Business is really, really good. I know my biggest challenge, and thankfully I've got really, really good team members. But I wonder, I'm looking at some of the things I do, and I question whether or not I can truly delegate that stuff. I feel like there's still too much on my plate that I just don't have anybody that can do that sort of thing. Now, eventually, again, I need to find a way to do that, to delegate more. And is that something that's common?
Absolutely. So I have a program called Restoring Sanity. And in that program, there's 5 sessions. The 6th session is just for leaders like you that are like, delegation has to be that next thing. If I can't delegate, I'm going to die. So that's the
Right.
phrase, right? Delegate or die. And so working your way through a filter, there's a 4-quadrant tool that you can look like what I really love to do and I don't want to give up. Then there's the
Mm,
what I love to do, but someone else can do it just as well as I can. Then there's
yeah.
the what I don't like to do, but I got to do. And then there's the what don't like to do, and I've got to give to somebody else. That's the easy
Right.
delegation one. So I would work a client through that matrix.
I think that there are a lot of things out there that maybe leaders are afraid to give up because they say, no one can do it as well as I can. And it could take potentially months for them to get up to, near my level. And so I would imagine that's a challenge that you encounter with people.
Absolutely. I struggle with that myself, right? So I've finally brought on a virtual assistant
Yeah.
and a project manager as contractors. And boy, it's like, boy, I could give this to them and it's going to take me a much longer to hand this one off. They may not do it as well as I do, but I have to change my mindset on that. And I've got to be willing to schedule that meeting and pour the vision and the task into them.
So, what does it look like then? Like, how does someone engage? First off, where do people find out about you normally? Like,
Sure.
in terms of like your own business, how do people find the calendar coach?
Yeah, I'm at paulcasey.org. Paul Casey's a professional golfer, so don't go to paulcasey.com. I'm paulcasey.org, and that's where you'll find the plethora of my services that I have. But if you really want the calendar coach program, you're going to go to takebackmycalendar.com. At that
Mm-hmm.
place, I've got a free control my calendar checklist I'd love to give to your listeners, Josh, and that would be just a way to kickstart them into this time management program.
What do you feel about quote unquote living life in balance?
Yeah, so my model that I take people through, it's a mouthful, but it's the Fulcrum framework of focus. A lot of F words there. But the reason it starts with the word fulcrum is I listened to a speaker years ago that said, your life's like a teeter-totter, which I think are now outlawed on playgrounds because they're not safe, whatever, right? And one side's work, one side's life, and its work-life balance is really impossible. Because as soon as you attain it, 1 second later, you're off. You're either on more work or you're on more life side. So he said, think about the fulcrum, that area, that triangle in the middle, that sometimes you've got to move things over towards the work side. You've got a big deadline. You've got your number one client needing something from you. Other times you've got to move that fulcrum to the other side, to life, or else your marriage is going to suffer, or
Right.
your other relationships. So it's really moving that fulcrum. It's more work-life integration. I think that's the new buzz term now, than it is work-life balance.
What do you think since we're talking about calendaring, is it pretty common that achievers, that leaders just calendar everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you saw my calendar, you'd probably laugh, because I show it to other people and they're like, man, you don't even have a second in there. Well, I've got margin in there too. I've got managed email in there, but literally, Josh, I calendar everything. I calendar date nights with my wife. I calendar my gym, going to the gym time, filing I've got on there. I know I'm a little OCD with this stuff, but I mean, I've got it all calendared, and it helps live an
Yeah, I
intentional
know.
life.
Yeah, and I know for me, if I don't calendar it's not going to get done. I mean,
Right.
sometimes I'll leave some broad categories like development or marketing or, work on copy or something like that. And I don't know exactly, I'm going to probably, tyranny the urgent, under that category. But I try to schedule that time for kind of catching up on that sort of thing. And I find that, and I just use that term, tyranny of the urgent. I think that if I don't block off those times, I'm always just going to be in response mode.
Yeah. One productivity guy calls it an F-bot, a focused block of time. And I find too, Josh, when I put in a too general of a time block, I blow right over that. Right. I don't respect the commitment with myself. But the more specific I put in that block of time, the more I'm likely to stop and do it and obey my calendar.
Mm-hmm. What about when someone is just like, their stress is at a 10 and there's just too much to do. And they're just that feeling of burnt out. They just feel burnt out. What do we do?
The first thing I would say is to schedule a personal retreat with yourself. I try to do these once a month, and you might say, well, I don't even have time for that, Paul. Well, you could say maybe 2 hours at a community center or a library or out by the river. Wherever you are, you've got to get a grip on where you're at. And it comes back to the beginning. What are my core values and what is the vision I want for my life, at least 1 year out? And you've got to get grounded first, or else you will go into burnout. And that's a scary place. And our team doesn't deserve that burnout. Our family doesn't deserve that. So we've got to get on that as soon as we can. And we have gauges in our life, right? And we've got to see, is that gauge running a little hot? If we can get to it sooner and self-correct, we're not going to cause any damage in our wake.
Yeah. Are there any tools or platforms or services that you're a fan of in terms of like technology?
Boy, there are so many out there. The one I'm using with my assistant right now is Todoist, Todoist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for tracking tasks and projects. That one's been effective for us at a small level. But I don't have a lot of electronic and technological gizmos. I mean, I listen to all the
Yeah.
speakers on that, and there's Habitify and a lot of different
Yeah.
ones out there. But these tools that I use are pretty simple, and it's just having the discipline to stick to them.
One thing that, and I'd love your opinion on this, one thing that I chose, and I've kind of progressively gotten more and more rigid about this. I have no notifications on my phone. I just do not want to be disturbed. I know every so often I'm going to go in and check email. I know every so often I'm going to go and check to see if I have any messages through Facebook or text or something like that. The only people that are able to get through to me are my immediate family and my assistant. And she knows it better be really, really important if she's like calling me or texting me and that. Other than that, like I'll get to it, but I'll get to it when I have that block scheduled off. But what's your opinion on that?
I totally respect that. I think the interrupters are paperwork, people, and technology, and email. Those are probably the top four. And so we need like a Sabbath from our technology every so often, just to put it aside. And then I like what you said, then there's another block of time where you're going to go in and check it. So it's not like it's going to fall off your radar. You're just
Yeah.
going to be super intentional about how you live, of checking it at that time. Or, as a filler task. I call them filler tasks, but it's like once I've gotten my main task done for this hour, I've got 10 minutes left. Well, then I'm going to do some of those filler tasks, and that might be checking my notifications.
Awesome. Well, Paul Casey, you are on the web at paulcasey.org. And I really like this. I can't wait to see the checklist. Takebackmycalendar.com, helping restore sanity for people like me, I would imagine, say type A, but definitely, achievement minded folks, men and women who are looking to create success. But I think with that success, that momentum, there's a lot of stuff coming at us all the time. And so thank you so much for the work that you're doing to kind of help restore that sanity. And again, what was the phone number that folks could text to get that checklist as well?
Yeah, open a text to 72000, 72000, and text the word growing, and we'll get that sent to you.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. It was a pleasure.